Good evening and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about the good, bad, and ugly of relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors, La Rosa's and Buffalo Wings and Rings in Greendale, Indiana, Greendale Cinemas, and Maxwell Construction. We are so thankful for these local businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.
Good evening, Eagle Country. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families. And tonight, honey, we are going to jump into a good...
Oh, yeah!
Oh, my gosh.
Let's get into a little fight tonight.
Wow.
Oh, wait, is that what we're supposed to do?
No, that was... Last week was humor, honey.
Oh, you mean I'm doing the wrong thing on the wrong show?
So we're going to be talking about a good fight.
Yes.
Conflict in the marriage. Not that anybody has ever had that but us. That's what Satan would love for us to think, that we're the only ones in the world that fight. But tonight we're going to talk about fighting and fighting fair in the marriage and resolving conflict, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and this is such a big deal because it's a cancer.
Yep.
Seldom do we have one argument or fight and it ends a marriage. But what we find is it just is a continual slow growth that we will watch couples that have come into 20, 25, 30 years of marriage, and they seem to get along, but when certain things happen or certain topics come up,
Trigger.
Yeah, it gets ugly. And I mean, we've seen couples divorce after 30 years of marriage, and finally that seed grew into something big and ugly.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to talk about with that conflict is it's actually, it is far more simple to resolve it in concept, okay? But we're going to figure out what it is that stems the conflict, but then how to handle that. And you know the cool thing too, goes way outside of your marriage. This can be used in your workplace, can be used with your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids really need to learn this because as they become young adults, they will experience conflict. And, you know, it'll either own certain relationships or they will get through it.
Hey, that reminds me of a couple things. One is we have a technology seminar we're going to be doing in April at Bright Elementary in our parenting series. And I do think technology is creating more of a problem because kids are not interacting and engaging with each other. We talked about this last week on just, you know, how to have humor in your life and work together with people. But when the conflict comes, you know, we're not learning those skills as a child anymore. And so we see this explosion. Part of the technology irritability is, you know, the whole oppositional defiant and irritability. So we're seeing that in young kids now. And now they're turning into young adults who are in relationships and they don't know how to resolve it.
Yeah. It's, you know, they can hide. And I say we. You know, all of us, we can hide. If we don't know how to resolve the conflict, I can put my head down on a computer screen or in a TV, and I can avoid it, which makes the home seem calm, but the storm still resides inside my head. Yeah. And so that's the dangerous part. That's the thing, that storm starts small and becomes some kind of full-blown hurricane down the road. So anyway, before we get too far in front of ourselves, we just want to thank Maxwell Construction and Buffalo Wings and Rings, Greendale Cinemas, and La Rosa's Pizza for all of their support. We definitely love hanging out at these places and eating more than we should, but that makes our finishing even more important in terms of exercise. So, but we want to thank these guys for getting behind us and providing the background support to keep this radio show rolling.
Yeah, speaking of finishing, so we teach fitness classes 6 days a week. We would love for you to come and join us. I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. at our Rock Solid Families office, and you teach on Tuesday, Thursday evenings
at 6 p.m. and also a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into on April 6th, we're going to start our next round of Strong Dad's class.
Very
cool. That'll be an 8-week session that goes from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and we do a 45-minute workout with a 45-minute study on being the best dad that you can be. So do not be, dads, don't be intimidated about that workout thing. Yeah, we're going to make you sweat, but we very much adapted to everybody. It's not about that workout. It's about some camaraderie, bringing the guys together. And, once you start seeing that we've all got sweat on us, we all have challenges. We come together in that circle and just talk about, the challenges of being a dad. Some of us have had great dad role models in our life. Some of us have not. But all that goes away when it's on your plate now to be the dad.
Yeah.
And so you've got to pull from whatever you can. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be a resource for these dads.
And it's interesting, Hun, because I think that this topic tonight of resolving conflict, some of us have learned it from our parents. My dad and my mom, and how they resolve conflict, your mom and your dad, and how sometimes it's a learned trait. And sometimes it's despite that we do differently, or because of that we do the same. And so we just kind of want to talk about that tonight, because you might have grown up with a very dysfunctional family where there was a lot of yelling and fighting and throwing things and maybe some abuse.
Yeah.
And so you think that's all there is, and that's not how it is. Or maybe your family didn't fight. Maybe it was all done behind a closed door. Maybe it was just all built up and no one ever talked about anything, resolved anything. So neither one of those extremes are healthy. We're looking at, how do we fight fair? We're going to have conflict. You and I are going to disagree. We've been married for over 31 years.
And then I finally get you to believe my side is right, and we roll right through that, right?
That's end of story, right? So, how do we fight fair? How do we resolve the times when we don't agree on things?
Yeah.
Because, guys, this isn't just in your marriage. This is, like you said, coworkers. This is friends. This is siblings, whatever. We have to learn some skills.
Yeah. So let's just talk. We're going to go through some things that are going to actually kind of make you think twice about what you're arguing about, okay? So this is top 5 issues that couples fight about. This is from an article in Science of People. And
Science of People?
Yeah, excuse me. And again, you can do a search on what people argue about, and within 1 or 2 different topics, they will spit out the same thing for couples all the time.
Common.
And they're real. These are real topics. Money is usually number 1, 2, or 3.
Ones,
yeah. Time. How we're using our time. We're either too stressed, or you're not around enough, or
you work too much.
This. Yeah. So time, how we handle that. Housework.
Oh.
One person's getting stuck with more than they think is right or fair, and so.
Well, it's funny because we were just talking about this with somebody who knew we were going to do the show today, and he was talking about, are you going to bring up the grocery? Because they don't agree on how they do the grocery shopping.
Yeah. Like one wants to meander and the other one wants to attack.
Yes, right? that's our Christmas shopping.
And so
dilemma.
Avoidance is the way that the attacker likes to do that.
We've learned, and those are the kind of things. Let's just take shopping for example. We
don't shop together that well. Not when we have a purpose. When we don't have a purpose.
When we don't have a purpose.
Yeah, when we don't have a purpose, it drives me insane.
We don't go shopping for fun.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? We learned that. We've been married for 31 years. We learned that sometimes the hard way after disagreements where you're looking at me, tapping your foot, going, are you done?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is more about the process, not the kill.
No, it's not. No. So I like to be called into shopping when it's the day before Christmas or 2 or 3 days before Christmas Eve. Linda you have your 3 or 4 or 5 items that you still, and you're just all upset. I don't know what to get.
Yeah.
And I say, give me the list.
Yes.
I put my ball cap on backwards. I paint my face black and fatigue colors and stuff. And I go out and I conquer. And it's rewarding, and it usually takes me about an hour.
Oh,
and
my
so,
gosh.
but that's just how we approach that. And so that's fun stuff, and we've learned to manage it. How about physical intimacy? That's a huge one, right?
Wow.
One person doesn't feel like they're getting enough intimacy. The other one feels like you're knocking on my door too much.
What's that book? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. That we are.
Yeah.
We're coming from it from 2 different angles, and it doesn't always work well together.
Yeah. And the next one is extended family that are outside of your doors. And You know, when we get married, we often talk about when you get married, you don't marry the person, you marry the entire family.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to leave and cleave to the new family, your own family. And so you don't leave completely. You may physically leave, but you don't leave all of that background, whether they're old traditions or habits or points of view, and they come in to your marriage. And so learning how to handle your family outside of your home.
Sometimes you do
big.
physically have to leave that. If it's an abusive, difficult situation, dysfunctional family that doesn't know boundaries, you do have to put some geographic distance between those families because it's too much to bring in the home. So,
So now, not to discount these topics, okay, because they are, but
real things.
they're real things, but I'm going to call them triggers. Okay, they're actual triggers, but they are not really what is going on with an argument. You and I, we've had so much fun over the years because we do our marriage retreat weekends, and over the years we've had our one argument that still has life to it.
The blue pants?
The blue pants, the argument, which is actually a very real story.
Yeah.
And I think we should maybe take a little bit of time just to kind of show it because it points out really what we're arguing about. And essentially what this is, we were just married.
Yeah.
And I was teaching.
Yes.
And school was getting ready to start. So this was like early August, late July.
And you needed some clothes.
And I needed clothes.
Yeah.
Right? And so we drove up to the old Dillard's, which was the old Chilato's over in Western Hills. We drove up there, a Sunday, beautiful day, you know. We drive up there, and right away we walk in, and you see these
sale rack,
most god ugly
they were on the sale rack,
ugly pants in the world. You know, they were just
blue.
They were ugly. They were ugly.
But you know,
and so anyway, I looked at you and I said, "There's no way I'm getting those pants. There's no way." And I said, "Just stop looking at them." And so with that, I picked up some other pants and I went into the dressing room and tried them on.
You're going to tell the story on your side.
Sure, yeah, duh. And so I'm in that dressing room and I hear you talking to the lady at the register, and I'm thinking, what in the world? And all of a sudden I look up over the dressing door and I see you out there and you're buying the blue pants.
They were on sale
for $4, right?
You would have been losing money.
That was your deal, right? Honey, for $4. They're $4. They're regularly like $30. They're $4. I came out of that dressing room.
You were not very happy.
And I was charged up. And it takes me quite a bit to get charged up like that. And I came out and I did some things that were not good.
You said some things that were mean.
I said some bad words. I threw the pants on the ground.
Made me cry.
Made you cry, and we stormed out.
The poor lady at the cash register didn't know what to think. She's like, "Do you want the pants?
Do I need to call the police? What's going on here?"
You know, okay, in your defense, they were bright blue. It was kind of the days of the Izod and the polos, so it was like the green
use the word that I'd like to use
and the
for
royal blue, and so they were a little bright. I will admit now, but back in the day, that was very trendy. So, and they were very big sale, like you had been losing money.
Yeah.
So.
But here's the point: we weren't really arguing about the pants, were we?
No.
All right, and what we came to find out with ourselves, and this, listeners, we need you to really hear this right now. We weren't arguing about the pants. We were arguing about some things that we didn't quite know how to put a word to it yet, but we kind of worked through this and learned. We were arguing about a control situation. About feeling disrespected. I had made a statement to Linda. I'm the one that's going to be wearing these clothes, not her. And so I felt disrespected. I felt like I was losing control over the decision making. And you felt like I was taking or being disrespectful of your controlling.
Yeah.
And so this was really about control. This was not anything at all about blue pants. And so blue pants became the trigger.
Right.
Guys, if you're listening right now, what's your trigger? Is it money? Is it intimacy? Is it work?
Family. Yeah.
Is it family? What's your trigger? But then how are you actually taking that trigger and what kind of conflict is coming from that. So
Right.
that's what we're going
What's
to get
the
into.
root? What's the root cause?
Yeah, what's the root? And so, one of the things that really helped us put this into words was a book written by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. And, honey, you want to tell them a little bit? Because this, I know, is one of your favorite books.
Yeah, so a friend of mine had shared this book years ago and just said it really helped her in her marriage. And I started reading it, and I actually was reading myself in the very beginning of it, where it really was about the fact that I had disrespected you for so long, that I did not take your word as being valuable, your opinion is important, that I kind of just pushed my way through and thinking I knew what was best. And it really disrespected you, and it kind of got you to a place where you boiled over and you took a lot. And then the same way, women feel, talk about that, hon.
Yeah, so, I mean, when I felt like, okay, Linda's going to do it her way or whatever, I became more unloving.
Yeah.
I saw you more as a control freak, a dominator in our relationship, and so that was hard for me to love the person that I married. And so I'm not one to just go out and start a fight, but my passive aggressiveness, my kind of nastiness, my silence, these were ways that I kind of presented, and that festers. And it wasn't until we actually started to put our hand on this, and because we're both in the counseling field, I think we were a little bit more sensitive to, okay, what's really going on here? So we were able to dig in a little deeper. But and we're going to read some scripture here. And I want you, listener, to hear the entire scripture. This scripture can be taken out of context, and please, we cannot take this out of context. So we're going to digest this for a second, because this is a thing that helps recenter us on how we're going to resolve conflict within our marriage. Right?
Yeah.
This is from Ephesians 5. Now, starting with verse 21, okay? It says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So
Like that's
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Submit to one another.
Right.
All right?
Not
Submit
me
to
to
one
you,
another.
you to me.
And so then it's on 22. Wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. You know what? Right there, that's where most people stop.
Yeah.
And wives get mad. I'm not submitting to him. And he's
Right.
like, yeah, it says right there in the Bible she should be submitting. No, that's not just what it says. So it says, wives, submit yourself to your husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Hon, you want to read 25?
Yeah. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy and cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any blemish, but holy and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they fed and cared for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are all members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband.
Thus, the phrase love and respect right here. And so let's back this up a little bit, and the idea that when two become one, all right, we do not really understand what that means. Oftentimes we get stuck in our own selfishness, right? I'm going to win the argument. I'm right, okay? Instead of what's right for us.
Right.
And so we have to stop fighting for our way, and we have to start fighting for the way of our family, for our marriage.
Yeah.
Okay?
Stephen Covey talks about the 7 habits of highly successful people, and one of them is the whole idea of listen to understand, and the whole idea, if I'm winning and you're losing, guess what? Our marriage loses.
Yeah.
And so if I submit and I cower down and I hold that resentment in to let you win, then I'm a doormat and it's a lose-win, and that's unhealthy for the marriage. We want a win-win.
Yeah.
Win-win or no deal. It's either we're both going to be happy and content and be pleased with how it worked out, or we're not going to do it at all.
Yeah, this is, we've kind of messed up a little bit by teaching our kids early on that they're going to be the leaders, they're in charge, you know, you got to be strong. Those are good traits when understood how to use them.
Right, in the right
but when you
context.
understand Ephesians 5, with that whole idea that two will become one, when you're on a team, baseball, football, volleyball, it doesn't matter, you have to put yourself aside
Right. What's
and you
best
have to
for the team.
fight for the team.
Right.
And there's nothing worse than a selfish player who's fighting for his own playtime,
Right.
his own righteousness
Yep.
within there. He first becomes destructive to the team, and then
Yep.
finally he's a cancer.
And I've told our 3 kids that we adopted, you know, as a coach, I would have rather had a team of kids who worked well together and that worked together as a team than one star player.
Yeah.
Because that star player, they're cancer if they're all about themselves and getting the, you know, the glory. So.
Yeah. So let's get some basic advice on then how are we going to get through this conflict. All right.
Yep.
And so first off, the very first thing is understanding you're not fighting for you. You're fighting for you too.
Think
right?
about win-win.
Right. It's a win-win. So that's the very first thing. That is the foundation of all of this.
Yep.
That we have to have that. If you think you have to come in and get your way, you're ignorant still
Yeah.
about what Ephesians 5 says.
And you know what? You, as a relationship, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a spouse, you need to look at them and say, if we did this, would you be happy? You know, you need to ask them because sometimes they're doing it just to please you and they're going to fester with some bitterness and resentment. So you need to really say, will this make you happy? And if not, let's go back to the drawing board because I want you to be happy too. I want us as a team to be in a good place.
Right.
And we can't hold on to that stuff. That's not
Right.
fair. It's a
Okay,
relationship.
so there's still going to be triggers, though, right? There's still going to be triggers. So the first thing is, once we understand that we're both on the same team, okay, then we have to identify those triggers.
Yeah.
So maybe in your relationship, it is money. Maybe it is sex. Maybe it is the kids, whatever it is. You have to identify those because those things are the triggers that get you to that ugly,
Right.
that place where you think you're right and they're wrong.
For instance, if you're a stay-at-home wife, mother, and you are getting upset every time your husband calls and he's late for work, why is that? Why are you getting upset? Maybe it's because you feel unloved. Maybe you feel unappreciated. Maybe that conversation needs to go deeper in when you're gone all the time, I'm overwhelmed and I feel unloved. You know, kind of get down to the core. Instead of him being late, it's not about being late. It's about being unappreciated or unloved. And so you really have to really think, why am I upset?
Yeah, why? And recognize when you're getting upset. So we
Yes.
always talk about, you know, you have to recognize your own symptoms. When you feel your face getting flush, when you feel yourself getting silent, you know, a lot of people don't even know how their body's responding
Yep.
to emotion. And so sometimes we have to teach, okay, so right now, how are you feeling about that? Well, I'm about ready to kill somebody, okay? You have to say, you have to know when your button has been pushed,
Yeah.
okay? And it's important for me then to also know when your buttons are
Right,
being
what to
pushed.
do.
So in other words, when I see you go quiet, or
Right.
when I see you starting to bang things around on the
always
counters
a
or
sign.
whatever, that's a sign, okay,
Yeah.
I think there's a little tension in
Yeah.
the room. So recognizing how we're responding to it.
Yeah, honey, there's also a couple things I think we need to throw in here because I think they really skew the argument. One is alcohol. When there is one or more people who have been drinking, that definitely fuels a horrible fight flight mode that is just so unhealthy.
Yeah.
You can't have this rational discussion or argument with an irrational person. So
Right.
you really need to make sure you give each other time to cool off, calm down, sober up.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, understanding that is so big. You have to understand we've got to seek logic. And so if there's alcohol, if there's emotion, if there's drugs, those delete any logical thinking.
or another person. I can't
Sure.
tell you how many times I've had a third person involved in this argument. Maybe it's another man or a woman who's whispering sweet nothings, a coworker or a friend, an old flame that is now going, oh yeah, you deserve better, and oh, that's not fair, he does that or she does that. Or a friend, maybe you have friends who are like, you need to ditch that guy and get somebody better. That is so unhealthy.
Yeah, they build on your
Yes.
emotion emotion that's not going to help to
Yes.
resolve that conflict. And so we need to make sure that we're dropping that emotion. We're, we talk about a timeout,
Yes.
So for you and I, we realize that when the conflict is present, the emotions are in us, we feel it, okay, whether it's blood pressure, whatever it is, we feel it. And so we've come to understand, okay, it's time for a break, time for a timeout. And so typically, because we have done this enough, that doesn't mean, but we're practiced
Got it
enough.
perfect.
Yeah. For us, that means for about an hour to 2 hours, we're going to go do our own thing.
Yeah, going to calm down.
We're going to calm down. And so that's going to allow our emotions to come back. And it also, because we know about this, it also allows the emotions to calm down and allows both of us to think, okay, what would be right for us?
Yes.
Well, our family, what would be right?
Right.
And so sort of swallowing hard on, okay, this is not about me.
Yeah.
This is about us. So that's why that timeout is so important.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before about the alcohol and the drugs. You know what? Sobriety would be important.
So important.
So if it means 8 hours of them sleeping
Sleeping it off.
that off, that's what you do. You do not go into the conflict when they are clouded up in their judgment.
So part of when so you do a timeout and you come back together. Do not just ignore this topic.
Right.
If you had an argument about something, it needs to be discussed and resolved, or it's going to just be brushed under a rug so much that it's going to be this gigantic hump that you start tripping over. But I do believe that you need to come back together in a rational manner and have a discussion about it. And don't start with, you did this and you did that. Start with I statements. I felt unloved when this happened. I felt scared when you weren't there. I did this. And then I need you to really, please listen, you need to own your part in it. You need to start with an apology. Even if you feel like your partner, your friend, your spouse was 95% wrong, don't say, I'm going to own the 5%. Just say, I was a little out of control, or like, for instance, the blue pants. I'm sorry, that was wrong of me to push those on you. I need to own that.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, actually, that's the very first thing we want to do. When you've timed out, you've calmed down, you come back, and even before you say how you were upset, you say, first, I just need to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know what that does? That puts your spouse in a non-defensive position.
Yeah, they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
they're saying they're
so
sorry.
right away, they drop their fists down. And so they're in a non-defensive, and they realize, I do not have to protect myself. All right,
They're not coming with guns blazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you, again, you have to practice for yourself, not coming back.
Yeah. Hun, we're running out of time, but I do want to mention some rules of fighting fair. And you can actually Google this. I mean, we're going to run through them, but please, if you want to kind of do this well, again, we're not saying you're never going to have a disagreement. Those are healthy. But you need to make sure you identify the problem and stick to it, okay? Attack the problem together, not at each other. Listen with an open mind, be willing to say, I was wrong, or I need to learn something here. Put yourself in your partner's shoes or your friend's shoes. Remember, win for the relationship, not your way. Treat the other person with respect. No name calling. No hitting below the belt. No calling each other names. Take responsibility, like we said, of your actions, even if it's like just a couple %. Explore the solutions together. And then, gosh, this is so biblical. Be willing to forgive.
Yeah.
Be willing to forgive. Don't hold on to it. It's like poison and waiting for the other person to die. You drinking poison.
Yeah, this is, and I like the idea to the exploring the solutions together. If you come back after the conflict and you are coming up with the solution that you believe is the right one, you're right back in the same camp that you were. So to come back in and say, let's figure this out together.
Yeah.
And again, that's where there's going to have to be some compromise. You may not get exactly what you wanted, but that's not important.
Yeah, so we know that this isn't going to be the be-end all, but please, if you can't resolve a conflict alone, get some outside help. See a therapist, talk to your pastor, call us at Rock Solid Families. We would love to sit down with you. We are working with a lot of families that are trying to be different in their home and to leave a legacy that's stronger. So we thank you so much for spending the time with us at Rock Solid Radio. And for my husband Merrill and I, just have a great night and make it a great week.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, La Rosa's and Buffalo Wings and Rings in Greendale, Indiana, Greendale Cinema, and Maxwell Construction. If you have questions you'd like answered on air or want to chime in on something you heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.